I'm very pleased to be here today on behalf of my colleagues and Premier Christy Clark, who, and particularly because you invited me on a day that otherwise I'd be sitting in a lengthy caucus meeting, and I'm here. So my colleagues and the Premier are sitting through a caucus meeting, and I get to spend some time with you. I want to, first of all, before I start, let you know that you guys in this province are gifted with a great leader in Premier Clark. She's smart, she's capable, she's a quick study, and she's moving our government to be focused in such a way that we will drive her job strategy right through to the next generation and change the future of British Columbia for the better. And in 2013, she will be re-elected as the Premier of the province of British Columbia, as our Free Enterprise Coalition does it one more time to the Socialists when we go to the election. That's a bit biased from me, and you can accept it or not. But it's also very important to you. Now, yesterday in British Columbia, we saw a significant announcement take place. Our friends at Rio Tinto announced that they would be spending $3.3 billion to build a new smelter operation in Kitimat. And I wanted to thank Rio Tinto because we did try, the Premier and I tried to fly in there yesterday. We couldn't get into Kitimat. We did talk about helicoptering out of Rupert. The weather was pretty bad. We ended up back in Vancouver. But this is Rio Tinto's message to the world, that British Columbia, for mining, is the place to invest. Their message is this: we actually downsized a bunch of operations, and we're now going to build one of the largest smelters in the world in British Columbia. We're going to spend $3.3 billion doing it, create thousands of jobs, stabilize the economy of the Northwest for the long term, and make a significant commitment to the people of British Columbia. And you, as people who are from BC or not from BC, should be thankful for that commitment to the province of British Columbia, because it's very important to your future. So thank you, Rio Tinto. Now, I'm going to talk to you today about a very important piece of my ministry, and that is the part that is the Ministry of Mines. And I want to talk to you about it today because it is on the cusp of becoming a significantly larger driver of our economy than it is today. By 2015, my objective is to have 17 new and/or expanded mines operating in British Columbia. That's 4 years from now, under 4 years from now. And we're working as hard as possible to make that happen. I have never seen the bureaucracy and the deputy ministers in our government ever focused on the jobs plan and on an issue like mining than I've ever seen at any time I've been in government in the last 15 years. The continued success of the mining sector is critical to the future of British Columbia, absolutely critical. An independent PricewaterhouseCoopers study stated the industry is worth $8.9 billion to the BC economy. But every dollar spent in mining is actually worth $1.73 in total economic impact. That's a significant contributor, considering that there's 47,700 jobs in 2010 in mining in this province, and that's approximately 2% of our workforce. But something else you may not know, it's more than the jobs of forestry and the logging sector combined. So you can understand why we're pretty focused as we move forward as to what we're going to try and do to continue to see the growth in this industry. You know, in 2001, there was $20 million a year being spent on exploration in British Columbia at the end of the last government when we took over. Today, there's over $300 million annually spent on exploration. And exploration is where you start the investment to find the ore body, to get the mine, to create the jobs, and create the long-term investment in BC. So what are we doing as a province? We can't just sit back and say, you do it all. We can't just sit back and not pay attention. So the first thing we have to do is we have to create an environment for you to attract the investment in mining in BC. I can tell you, our finance minister was just over in Europe, and he came back with a pretty significant message about the significant challenges that are facing financially in Europe and how much money is sitting on the sidelines in these jurisdictions looking for a safe place to invest. The debt to GDP in Greece is 170%. In British Columbia, it's 17%. In British Columbia, we have a AAA credit rating. And the reason I tell you that is so that people will remember that that's why people, companies from Asia and elsewhere all around the world are calling us and saying, can we invest in British Columbia and where can we invest the money? Simply because we're a good jurisdiction to come to do business. But what we're doing is doing a number of things. We've just extended the mining flow-through share tax credit to the end of 2013. We've extended the new mine allowance until 2016. The allowance provides the equivalent of 133.3% deduction of capital costs for mines that commence or expand production before January the 1st of 2016. The mining exploration tax credit, which provides 20% refundable tax credit for companies for qualified exploration expenses incurred, will now be going to January 1st, 2017. One project, one process for the environmental assessment process is a key and priority objective of our government. We are in discussions with the federal government to do for us, not just for us, but Alberta, Saskatchewan, and I've actually talked to my colleagues across the country at the ministerial level and said, we have got to get this, where we have one environmental assessment process, one decision maker, with hard timelines of when we expect these things to be done so that we can attract and guarantee to the investors that come to Canada that we can get these things done. I believe that we will actually accomplish that. It won't be easy, but I do believe there's momentum and we will get there. We're going to strengthen the mine development review committees that incorporate technical mining expertise and greater in First Nations participation and a relationship that will work for the future. Now, one thing I heard when I became the Minister responsible for energy and mines is that there's a backlog of permits and things that need to be cleared up and get done so people can get the other work done that they want to get done and make the applications and know that we can do this. You know, right now, because of the high price of minerals, the attractiveness for BC investment is strong. And as a result of that, we get a lot of applications. We receive now about 1,100 notice of work applications a year. On top of that, we have other little permits for things and other things that we do that can frustrate people who want to make an investment here. So what are we going to do about it? One of the challenges we faced last spring when I became the minister was we have a significant challenge to our fiscal plan. We've been hit hard, like other jurisdictions, on our investment income. We've been hit hard on our revenues, and we have to keep our costs in line because we want to protect that AAA credit rating and that 17% debt to GDP because that's what's going to attract investment to BC. So we fiscally have to be pretty tough. But it was clear when I became the minister that every one of what we refer to as the dirt ministries had a problem. That over the last number of years, as we had to tighten our belt and tighten our belt and tighten our belt, we may have tightened it a little too tight on those ministries. And as a result, they were getting backlogs. And they were having challenges finding a way to get the processes and the work done. So the challenge at that point in time is you can either go to Treasury Board, who are a group of my colleagues and analysts, who immediately they get on that board, lose all their sense of humor. They forget that there is a word in the English language called yes, and live in a world of no. So don't come and ask for money when things are tough. So we took that challenge within my ministry seriously. And we actually have a number of grant programs that go out for different types of innovative energy and things like that. And I said, you know what? Maybe it's time to invest those dollars differently. So we went in and changed a number of programs and found $28 million. And we've spread that money to the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Forest, Lands and Natural Resource Operations, and the Ministry of Energy and Mines to streamline, speed up, and get things done. In addition to doing that, we shifted gears to say we're going to move to we're going to do more professional compliance. So if you actually hire an environmental engineer at some levels of the permitting process, we're actually going to accept the report from your environmental engineer and not have to have another one go take another look at it within our bureaucracy. It's an important shift to professional compliance, to streamline and accept the fact that there's people out there that can do this work and we can do it. Once the permitting backlog is reduced, the turnaround and notices of work for mines will be 60 days. That is our goal. And I see Karina who used to be my ADM and is now the president of the Mining Association, cringing a little bit. It'll be 60 days, Karina, okay? The other piece of this is I just came through a legislative session and I passed an amendment to the Mines Act to reduce the regulatory burden on industry while continuing to ensure the environmental protection, health, and safety. Basically, what we have is we have certain activities, as you all know, that take place on the land base that go through the same permitting process as an extensive mine application. And we feel that there's a way to do that without having to do to do it where we can actually streamline that approach and know if it's a low impact on the land base, like for instance, you're cleaning back some dirt to see what the rock looks like underneath, and you're going to do a bit of core sampling in an area where there is no riparian area or streams or whatever. We're streamlining that. It's going to allow the creation of a new regulation to focus our resources on higher risk activities and the growth of the mining sector and help create jobs. Consultations on those regulations will occur over the next number of months with First Nations, industry, and the public in developing the regulations because we want to get it right. We also have a partner in British Columbia on our land base, and it's our First Nations in BC. And something you should understand, we're committed to working with First Nations to share the wealth generated by BC natural resources. We're committed to having a working relationship with them in a way that we can get the business done, and we're going to do it in a respectful manner so that we can have that relationship for generations to come. We are the first province in Canada to share direct revenue generated from mining with First Nations. We're doing that on a number of projects today, and we actually have 2 agreements reached and a number that are under negotiation. If you want to see what that looks like, check out the new Afton mine, where there's a relationship with First Nations where they're actually probably now have about 5,000 meters of underground tunnels down to an ore body, where there's a relationship between the mining company and the First Nation, where there's job creation and training as part of it, and people are being employed by the First Nation and changing the socioeconomic base for them. You could just ask the chief about that. He's been in the media talking about this. And there's a financial relationship on revenue sharing between us and the First Nation. These guys, in my opinion, got it. They're mining. That's what they wanted to do. They went and built a respectful relationship with the First Nation in the area, and today they're actually building a mine. And you know, in British Columbia, we made a significant investment just a couple years ago. We made a decision that at the time I said to the Premier of the day will prove to maybe be one of the most significant decisions we've made for the future of the economy of British Columbia. We made the decision to spend $404 million on a power line up Highway 37 in northwestern British Columbia. And why did we do that? Because there's all kinds of opportunities in independent power, run-a-river, and those opportunities in a relationship with the Tahltan First Nation and a company in the area. There's a great opportunity for a relationship with the Tahltan on the mining opportunities, and we have mining companies that know that we have at least 5 major mines up Highway 37. The biggest holdback to the ability for that to happen in the province was electricity. And if I go back for just a second to Rio Tinto Elcan, do you know that the ore that's smelted in Kitimat doesn't actually exist in British Columbia? It comes from another place in the world, but it's smelted here because they came here and they invested in something that they thought would make their business thrive for generations to come, and that was electricity. So they have power, which is their biggest competitive edge here in BC, and that's why Rio Tinto's there. And that's why we're going up Highway 37 for $404 million. And if you want to see how to build a relationship with a First Nation or talk to somebody about the First Nation, there's some people from the Tahltan here. There's nobody that is more respectful, more innovative, and more caring about their area of the province or their people or the rest of us as far as economic opportunity than the Tahltan. So that's what we see today on the landscape. And it's a new world for some, but you have to understand. It's a world that's been created by decisions of the Supreme Court of Canada, and we believe that we can make these relationships work and get the mines done And we are there to work with you and help you to accomplish that. We have another challenge facing us. And we made an announcement earlier today because there was concern about a job training program that was losing its money because it was actually running out. Today we announced the funding for a new program that supports training for people who work in the mining industry. More than $1 million will go to the Association for Mineral Exploration of BC, Aggregate Producers Association, and MABC and their industry partners to train people to work in mining. And this is critical. Because if you look what we're facing in BC, we're facing an explosion in the need for skilled labor. Just the building of the smelter in Kitimat is going to be one thing. We have liquefied natural gas coming at us in Kitimat as well. 2 pipelines that we think will be built for natural gas, and trains, which is the manufacturing facilities for liquefied natural gas, all will require skilled labor. Anybody that wants to work, go north. There's jobs already waiting for you to go. I was sitting with a company the other day that told me they can't even get people to get metal cladding put on a building because the skilled labor shortage is already there. We will need thousands of people trained, and that's why we're making that investment in skills development with the industry. We need to do that to further develop our human resource strategies, because without it, we could fail. And you know what? That's not something Christy Clark nor I have any interest whatsoever in doing. In the mining sector, we have the potential alone, just in the mining sector, the potential alone, if we succeed on what we're trying to do today, add 10,000 new jobs in mining in BC alone. 10,000 jobs. And then there's all the spin-offs that come with that. So we have a goal to ensure that our post-secondary institutions actually start to pay attention to what needs to be trained in British Columbia. You know, we hire 1,700 teachers in BC a year. We train 5,000. Maybe we need to talk to some of those folks and say, you know what? If we only need 1,700, you might want to change your idea of what your career should look like, and you should look at mining and natural gas and resource extraction as a future for yourself and your family, because, first of all, the average mining job is about $118,000 a year. My daughter, who happens to be a teacher, and it has a master's degree, and has been teaching long enough to be up to pay scale, makes about 75 to 80. The opportunities are immense. The family supporting jobs are immense, and the activities that will come with them are just incredible. So we're going to make sure that happens with skilled engineers, geologists, prospectors, specialized sector workers, those type of people that we need. Electricians, people that understand systems management, people that can run technical pieces of equipment. All of those people are needed now and will be needed in spades in the next few years. Because our job strategy, which ties into the Pacific Gateway strategy, which is why we're here thinking the way we are, is going to be successful. We're going to improve our ports. We're going to improve our movement of goods and services. You know, you guys that live in the Lower Mainland probably go across the Port Mann Bridge. I live out in the valley. I do it way too often. And it's an irritating construction project if you live out there. But if you look at it correctly, you'll think that bridge isn't about moving traffic. It's not about moving people as far as, although we will be able to have bus service across the bridge for the first time in 40 years. It's about the $1.5 billion of economic activity that sits idling in that bridge every year. We need to move our goods and services to Asia and other countries if we're going to be competitive. And that's why we're investing in our ports and our roads and our rail system in partnership with our partners, because otherwise we'll fail you when you extract the ore out of the ground, because you won't be able to get it to market in a timely way. And we do not intend to have that to be a block to success. You know, the Premier's trade mission in November focused on strengthening our existing relationships with China and with India, and she will be going back this spring to Japan and Korea and other countries as we continue to build the relationship. And I got to tell you, the feedback I get from the sectors that I represent and the people that I know that were on that trip and the people who I know in those countries came back with this one comment. Her trip was magic. They loved the Premier. And she did a terrific job on our behalf selling British Columbia over there and instilling confidence in people to the point we now know that China has a number of companies that have already committed to come and make significant investments in mining in British Columbia. And that is important, that you have a leader that can do that on behalf of British Columbians, wherever she may be. But when she goes into another country, the country goes abuzz and says, wow, they got a leader like that and the fundamentals like that, we've got to get there. And that's what's going to happen in British Columbia. So what we're going to do is spend $4.9 billion in infrastructure on top of the $22 billion program we already have in infrastructure upgrades, and we're going to invest in Rupert and Vancouver and the other ports, like I said. Do you know that over the next number of years, China itself is expected to build 18 New York cities. 18 New York cities. And you know what they need? They need goods and services and resources, and where can they get them faster than anywhere else than in British Columbia? So you're part of a renaissance. What you need to know is this. We're open for business. We will try and solve any problem you have. We will work with you if you want to work with us. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time on formalities to deal with this minister or this ministry. Our job is to get those 17 new or expanded mines done by 2015, and we're going to work on our processes and we're going to get them straightened out. Well, I think we're already a long ways down that road, and we are going to deliver for British Columbians, and you can be part of that. You can be part of one of the most exciting things that you're ever going to see in maybe this generation or the generation for your children and your grandchildren. But if we get it right, and we intend to with you to get it right, our children and grandchildren are going to have the future that they deserve, because we thought far enough out, with enough vision, to be able to make this happen for British Columbians, and that's exactly what we intend to do. Thanks for having me today.
Now, Minister Coleman has very kindly agreed to take a couple of quick questions. You see some blue cards on your tables there. If you would like to quickly print out a question, you can add your company name and your name if you wish, and I will start us out here. How do we increase the awareness and appreciation of BC's local and global mining industry in the often aloof Lower Mainland?
Well, I tell you how I do it. I had some people in my office the other day were complaining about a couple of things, all resource sector stuff, and I said, explain something to me. They said, what's that? And they said, how'd you get here? Drove my car. So you have fossil fuel in your car. I said, but you also realize that the plastic and the dash and all of that come from petrochemical things, because that's where we make our plastic. I said, take a look at your clothes. There's stuff from for our resource sector in there. And in actual fact, maybe if you need knee replacement surgery next year, we'll be able to pay for it, because we have a mining, natural gas, and a resource sector in British Columbia, because they're paying the bills. And that's what we have to continue to tell the people in the Lower Mainland.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a blue card, please hold it up and the Vancouver Board of Trade and staff will come immediately and get it. Minister, so much great news for mining in BC, and you did refer to it a little bit, but could you expand a little bit upon the related value-added jobs such as the smelters?
Yeah, I think that's the next step of this. We have actually one proponent that's looking at doing a very interesting smelting process with a particular, I won't give out the mineral, but it's a very valuable mineral that's been in to see me, and they're working with people like what is it in Boston? MIT, who have got some ideas for stuff that we can do in BC. I met with them recently. I believe that as we go forward, we will, all the value added is there. I mean, there's a very successful company in British Columbia that's been doing value added for the mining industry for decades, and it's employed probably 1,000 people at least across BC for those decades, and we're probably onto the third generation of people, and that's Cal Tire. And they have actually are a company that does tires into the mining industry. They have been very successful at it, and those are the type of value addeds that this brings. If you go into the town of Princeton right now, we just opened up Copper Mountain, a mine that had been shut down since 1995. You know, there's about 400 jobs on the mountain, but there's also a whole renaissance in the community itself on all the other jobs and value-added things that are going into that community, in addition to the guy that runs a little restaurant now has enough customers, and those people are working in those opportunities. The value added is stunning when you can create a number of jobs that are paying well over $100,000 a year, and what that actually gravitates out into a community. And if you go into rural BC, if you go into Princeton and you ask them whether they like mining, they'll tell you, yes, they do. And if you go there from Vancouver and you say you hate mining, they'll run you out of town, I suspect.